You can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. Seek to enhance your communication skills, assess every situation, be sensitive, pay attention to the details of every conversation, and effectively lead all communication with a thoughtful, careful, and loving approach. I'm sure the vast majority of my audience has heard this old axiom and would consider the advice below to be good advice. But something is going on that people are not seeing, and in today's video, I would like to reveal this for you because something is getting misinterpreted. Soak this in for just a second. The idea of forcing somebody to do something never works. You see, that's the vinegar. If you convert that vinegar to honey and you incentivize something, people will be far more amenable to it. See, there's this idea that everyone has their price. Perhaps it isn't 50% off all drinks on Fridays or Saturdays with a COVID-19 vaccine card. Perhaps it's 20% off all purchases at Walmart. Maybe it's your next month utility bill wiped away and taken care of. You see, what's your price? We know everyone has their price, right? This is a movie from back in 1993 that I'm sure a lot of you remember. That everyone has their price. What's going to be yours? $1 million? Perhaps completely wiping away your tax debt for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They will find a way to turn that vinegar into honey. So just be prepared for this. Some people say, no, I would never, I would never, I would never. But one of the reasons that they say, I would never, is that it's experimental. It hasn't been FDA approved. Well, what happens when the FDA approves it? What happens when it's no longer classified as experimental? And all that goes away. And then the economy continues to tank, and wages continue to fall behind inflation. All of a sudden, those incentives, free groceries, cheaper gas, they start to look a little bit more enticing. They're playing the long game. Now, I'm sure a lot of you would look at this image and wonder, what does this have to do with anything you were just talking about, Florida Maquis? This is an ancient map of Great Britain. I'm sure many probably don't know of Wessex or Mercia or East Anglia or Northumbria or North Wales. It's still what we know to be Great Britain, and it's still largely the same people. But culture changes boundaries. Culture and belief systems change boundaries. And this is what is going on right now in the western part of our country. There are those proposing a change in the map based on culture. Some have decried all of this disunity. Florida Maquis, why don't you tell everyone to get together and all get on the same side? Because in reality, someone would have to give up their belief system. Someone would have to give up their culture. Instead of just separating based on culture, they would have to live under a government they don't agree with, that didn't share their values. We hear the left talk about safe spaces all the time. We should grant them the safe spaces they want by leaving their areas they control, and going to areas that share our values. This is the article talking about this. Disunited states, Oregon counties bid to join Idaho shows how some will do anything to avoid extreme Democrat culture policies. See, there isn't going to be a race war. There's going to be a culture war. And people are just going to separate based on the concept of freedom of association. We should let them, grant them, have their safe spaces by leaving ourselves. This is why I've created this map. And really what's going on out west, they just need to think bigger. Instead of it just being parts of North California, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, and Idaho, they need a Western States Alliance. They need to bring in parts of Northern Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, Montana. All these governors need to sit down and create their own alliance based on culture. Just like we've done down here. And allow them to have their culture on the West Coast. Allow them to live amongst those that share their values. These lines used to represent different peoples with different values. All we have to do is redraw the lines. It's not that hard. And vote with your money. This is something people said they thought was crazy, and it was just a pie in the sky, wishful thinking. It's actually working. It is actually working. In the first 100 days of the Biden administration, so many states, conservative states, have stood up and taken their states back. Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida, South Dakota, Montana, Missouri, all these states, if you look at what their legislatures have done, is they have broken away, really, from the direction of leftist Washington, D.C., and moved farther and farther and farther to the right. See, the original piece of advice that I started with, this is popular in the South. This is an axiom that is well known in the South about getting more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. This isn't really a northern axiom. I'm sure there's those up there who've heard it. But they don't understand the reality of this, truly, yet. But business, anyone who has ever run a business understands this. That the nicer you can make things, the more amenable you can make things for people, the more likely they are to frequent whatever good or service you're providing. You see, this was the game Amazon played, and played well. They had easy return policies. They made their process very streamlined. They made virtually every possibility for purchasing something available. And it showed up quick. And Amazon didn't try to make a whole lot of money right at first. In fact, in some cases, they didn't make any. But they brought in more and more people to their website just based on culture. It started with books. They played the long game. And now, look what Amazon is. And still, in some cases, they lose money on certain deliveries in certain areas and on certain things. But they make it up in other areas just based on their culture. They thought, if we can make it easy for people to sit home and get the things they need, eventually we'll win the argument, because they know that basically North Americans are generally predisposed to doing the easy thing, to doing the cheaper thing. And that's what they're going to do with this, which is really what this was all about, this movie. Everyone has their price. All that's being determined right now is what's the price for those who have yet to be vaccinated? What's the price? And this is going to go on around the world. If you think things are bad financially here, you should see what it's like in other places. This is coming. This was coming, and it was foretold in an old movie. So I guess I will just leave it there. There are other things going on in the world, of course, but tracking a couple of storms. One in the Gulf has a 40% chance of becoming a cyclone. One out off Bermuda has a 90% chance. So it's already May, or I should say it's only May, and we already have 2 storms. Usually the Atlantic hurricane season doesn't begin until June, so we probably should keep an eye on this. But I hope everyone has a good weekend. You can track this on NOAA. So, God bless. Like, share, subscribe. And I'm not saying this is bad advice, but just understand it can be used in ways that people don't necessarily see all the time. God bless. We'll see you on Twitch tonight.